Thank everybody for joining with us here today. And I want to expressly share my gratitude for the great mayor of the city of Fort Worth, Maddie Parker, for being here, but also for what she does every day. I want to thank Chief Noakes, Sheriff Wayborn, and Colonel McCraw who join us, as well as Senators Bob Hall, Phil King, and Representatives Frazier, Guerin, Schutzline, and Plisa. Listen, all of us prioritize public safety and the safety of our streets. We commit ourselves to achieving that goal and working toward that goal every day. People who are on the front lines of executing that goal are the men and women who stand behind us here today. I, speaking for all Texans, want to share my gratitude for these law enforcement officers for putting their lives on the line to ensure public safety in their community. We need officers like that across the entire state of Texas, enforcing the laws passed by the legislature so that our communities are safe. One challenge that we have, a growing problem that we have in our communities, is illegal street racing and street takeovers. Texas law enforcement needs more tools to curb this criminal activity that threatens the safety of everyone around this type of criminal activity. We've seen this problem across the state. We've seen it in Austin, in Houston, in Dallas, and you've also seen it right here in Fort Worth. Less than a month ago, Fort Worth police broke up a street takeover and arrested 5 people involved in this very dangerous criminal activity. To send a message to the criminals who commit these crimes, as well as to send a reminder and an update to the law enforcement officials who want to enforce the laws of Texas. I will be ceremonially signing 2 new laws that empower law enforcement to curtail illegal street racing and illegal street takeovers. House Bill 1442. It adds 2 new offenses to the organized criminal activity statute, and they include reckless driving exhibition and racing on a highway. Under these laws, law enforcement now have the authority to seize vehicles and contraband used in the commission of these crimes. Thanks to the hard work of Representative Ann Johnson and Senator Paul Bettencourt, this new law gives police and prosecutors powerful tools to deter illegal street racing and street takeovers. The second law is House Bill 2899. Under this law, vehicles used by people charged with racing on a highway or reckless driving exhibition can have their vehicles impounded immediately. Street racing is a dangerous behavior. It puts surrounding drivers and pedestrians at substantial risk. Vehicles used in the commission of these crimes should be taken off the road immediately. Thanks to Representative Plisa and Senator Bob Hall for this important new law to fight illegal street racing and illegal street takeovers. Both of these laws will safeguard Texans from dangerous and illegal street racing. Texas is a law and order state. As long as I am governor, we will back the blue, protect our citizens, and ensure that law enforcement has the tools they need to secure our streets. Next is Mayor Maddie Parker.
Thank you, Governor. It goes without saying that any city's #1 responsibility has to be public safety. And I'm very proud to say, and I think maybe other jurisdictions might push back on this, that I think Fort Worth PD is the best department in the entire country. And really the real heroes are the men and women standing behind me. Our directed response unit is responsible for making sure that the legislation that you've talked about, Governor, and the other laws on the books are actually used against criminal activity. Because the reality is, unfortunately, street racing and street takeovers are not a victimless crime. Sometimes what you see on TV or in social media is maybe sensationalized. You see some young kids doing donuts in the middle of the street, and you forget that at the other end of that, oftentimes, lives are lost. Right here in Fort Worth, we lost a wonderful young couple who had 3 children. Ben and Meg Arbor were lost right here in Fort Worth, and they were 39 years old. And these types of incidents are being all too common across the country, but not here in Fort Worth, and thanks to Governor Abbott and our legislators here today, in Texas anymore. I already mentioned Fort Worth PD, but I'll do it again. Chief Neil Noakes, who will speak after me, will tell you how we made this happen. First of all, it's in cooperation with all jurisdictions across North Texas. The 5 arrests that the governor mentioned already, of course, would not have happened without the cooperation between Richland Hills PD, of course, DPS, thank you, Director McCraw, and others. This, in the fastest growing city, in the fastest growing region in the country, is DFW. And crime has absolutely no city limits. But I can assure you that Fort Worth is 100% committed to public safety, to making sure our officers have every single resource needed. And what's wonderful about this relationship, and the legislators that are standing before me today, when we don't have the laws on the books we needed, it was our officers working directly with offices like Senator Phil King and Bob Hall and others here today to say, what can we do to be better to get us to a place today to sign these 2 bills as well. In closing, I'll just say this. These are difficult times in this country. You have large cities falling apart because they're not focused on public safety. And the only way you have a thriving large city that is focused on quality of life is because of men and women that are willing to wear a uniform and carry a badge. With that, I'm going to introduce to you our Chief, Neil Noakes. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mayor Parker. J. Edgar Hoover said, the most effective weapon against crime is cooperation. He went on to say the efforts of all law enforcement agencies with the support and understanding of the American people. Well, the signing of these bills today by Governor Abbott is an excellent example of cooperation. It's cooperation among our elected officials and law enforcement agencies, and I firmly believe it is done with the support and understanding of the people of Fort Worth and the people of the great state of Texas. This is a cooperative effort to fight back against the dangerous street racing and dangerous street takeovers by criminals who pose a significant threat to public safety. I have to say I'm so proud of the men and women of the Fort Worth Police Department for their tireless efforts in combating these dangerous criminals and the way they endanger citizens. Our directed response unit, our patrol officers, our gang unit, our real-time crime center, our fusion center, our intelligence unit, and many others work tirelessly to protect the citizens of Fort Worth by dealing with these street takeovers and street racers. I'm also thankful for our partnerships with the many local law enforcement agencies in our region who are always willing to step up and help when needed. Specifically, I want to thank partners like Sheriff Bill Wayborn and the Tarrant County Sheriff's Office. I want to thank Director Stephen McCraw of the Texas Department of Public Safety. As an example, after the governor announced the creation of the Street Takeover Task Force, immediately our regional director, Hank Sibley, reached out to me and said, whatever you need, the DPS is here for you whenever you need us. Additionally, Major Sherrod calls frequently to see what the DPS can do to help us, regardless of the situation we may be dealing with. But additionally, ladies and gentlemen, we cannot overlook the decisions and actions of our elected leaders, those who are willing to step up and take action to give us the tools we need to get the job done. And I have to start, first of all, with my mayor, Maddie Parker, the greatest mayor in the country, and our city council, many of the members of whom are here supporting this today, who enacted ordinances, city ordinances that we could use to combat street takeovers and street racers. I also have to make sure we recognize our state legislators, our lawmakers who saw a need, who listened to their constituents. And folks, it's not easy to get legislation passed, but they put the work in, they got it done, and they put it before the governor, and he supports efforts like this to support law enforcement. So Governor Abbott, thank you so much. You're the leader of the greatest state in the union, no question. By signing these bills, you will help law enforcement agencies across all of Texas continue setting the example of what public service, public safety, and making our public a priority really look like. What you see before you today, this is an outstanding example of elected leaders and law enforcement professionals coming together in a spirit of cooperation and determination to take a stand against dangerous criminal activity. It is our honor to serve. It is our honor to protect. And Governor, by signing these bills, we will be able to do both even more effectively. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. And now a longtime friend of mine and a longtime friend of public safety, Sheriff Wayborn.
Thank you, Governor. First of all, I want to thank the legislatures and yourself for getting these bills where they're at. It is hard to pass bills, and they got this passed because they knew how bad we needed it. And, of course, as usual, Texas is leading the nation, and they're setting the pace. So this is how we conduct public safety in Texas. For the people out there pushing around those 2,500-pound missiles, those chuckleheads, we want to make it perfectly clear that we're coming after you. The light will be on at the jailhouse, and regardless of jail overcrowding, we'll always have room for them because they are a clear danger to the community, and they're not going to be tolerated not only in Tarrant County, but they're not going to be tolerated across the state. And I want to thank Director McGraw because of his incredible leadership in DPS of all that they do. And we know everybody's spread thin, but they have responded all over the state in doing this. And they have stepped up and partnered with not only Tarrant County and Fort Worth, but multiple agencies across the state. And, of course, Chief Noakes is doing an incredible job at Fort Worth and going after these folks. And we're going to stand with him and stand in that gap. And Tarrant County Sheriff's Office is always going to be that resource for them. But I want to make it clear, you people come into Tarrant County or into Texas now, we are going to take your car and we're going to take your freedom. So I hope it's precious to you and that you mind your P's and Q's. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff. So if I could summarize the Sheriff. If you do the donut, you do the time. And now the Director of the Texas Department of Public Safety, Colonel Steve McCraw.
Thank you, Governor. Sheriff, thank you for chuckleheads. I will try to plagiarize that later on. I know it's a technical law enforcement term. Governor, you made it very clear. The state legislature made it very clear. Our chiefs of police, our sheriffs, our elected officials, thank you, Mayor, that this is unacceptable behavior. A street takeover will not stand, period. There will never be an instance where it will be allowed. And we've got an obligation to protect the state, and we're excited as a law enforcement community right now to have additional tools to be proactive. And one thing I want to do is at least point out that the legislation's done many great things, but one thing is done also come September 1st. If you facilitate, if you cooperate, if you take video of it, if you upload videos of it, you're culpable of a crime come September 1st. And make no mistake about it, the statute of limitations is 3 years. We got plenty of time to find you, and we will find you. You may get away that Saturday, that Friday, maybe that Sunday, but we'll get you. And we'll continue to work organized criminal activity investigation because it's now an enumerated offense in the organized crime statute. And Governor, we'll continue to pursue it through our special agents, analysts, and certainly our troopers supporting our local professionals. Nobody has a better and more professional law enforcement community than the state of Texas, and we're blessed to have the sheriff and chief for all you guys do. I want to commend you. Your proactive measures have made a difference in your county, but also it's signaled across the state that Texas will not stand for this.
Thank you, and thank you also for helping to organize and implement the statewide task force cracking down on this crime. Now, to sign the laws. The crackdown on illegal street racing and illegal street takeovers is now law in the state of Texas. We'll take a few questions.
Can you share with us more results from the task force that you created in February regarding this matter?
So with regard to the task force that I created operating statewide on cracking down on street takeovers and street racing, great progress has been made working in collaboration with cities across the entire state and law enforcement agencies across the entire state. What we found is exactly what Chief Noakes talked about, and that is collaboration leads to better results. As for the specifics of what's been achieved, I'm going to defer to Colonel McCraw.
Well, the most important thing, Governor, as you know, the absence of crime and disorder is what success is like, and we've been able to thwart a number of street takeovers across the state, including in Austin this weekend. And I know certainly the Fort Worth Police Department and Tarrant County Sheriff have been very proactive and actually prevented a number of them. Certainly we've been engaged in arrests. All of us have made arrests. I know the DPS has made at least 52 arrests involved in these particular street takeovers. Recovery of stolen vehicles, which is a modus operandi for many of these people involved in this activity. And we're going to continue. And we're not done with making arrests. So there's ongoing criminal conspiracies that we've targeted, we've identified, and we'll continue to make cases on working with our local partners.
Very good. Thank you. Go ahead.
Colonel brought up a good point about the stolen vehicles. A lot of these takeovers are done by stolen vehicles. I know you all, some of them you have to pursue just to get them. What kind of rules have y'all come up with on that, just to be able to stop the theft of these vehicles being a part of it?
Well, there's, let me mention two things. One, obviously, anybody who steals a vehicle commits a crime for which they can go to jail. Separately, in the session preceding this most recent one, I signed a law that increased the penalties to a Class A misdemeanor to do a street takeover or to do street racing, making sure that when we arrest these people, they're going to be spending time in jail. Kind of goes back to what I said, emphasizing what Sheriff Wayborn was talking about. If you're doing donuts, we intend to arrest you and put you behind bars where you can be for years. Is dangerous, deadly dangerous, as the mayor had pointed out. And if someone dies, obviously it can lead to even tougher penalties. But we have a collective goal. Stop this activity. And one way of stopping it is by instilling jail time consequences for anybody who violates these laws.
Governor Abbott, will you call a special session on teacher pay raises, and if so, when?
So I think it's no secret that there is another special session coming up. What I have not declared yet and will not tell you today is when that will be and what all the items will be on that agenda.
Governor, following up on that question, I spoke with teachers recently who expressed disappointment that teachers did not get a pay raise during the legislative session. I spoke to the speaker, I spoke to the lieutenant governor. They told me they are committed to giving teachers pay raises. Are you committed to giving teachers pay raises? And in a upcoming special session that you referred to, is that something that you will do as a separate bill from education savings accounts?
So, Jack, first of all, it's very important for the public to understand that as we speak today, public school funding is at an all-time high. Per-student funding is at an all-time high. And I have authorized more teacher pay raises than any other governor in the history of Texas. That said, yes, I am fully committed to putting forth legislation that will even add more to teacher pay raises in the state of Texas, and that may be one of the items that will be on the next special session agenda.
Will it be separate from education savings?
All the nuances of that will come out at the time that the agenda is issued.
We have time for 2 more questions.
Is there any attempt to funnel these car enthusiasts / chuckleheads into maybe sanction tracks, or maybe the city might be more versed in this, but is there anything that you can do for them? Because a lot of them are just car enthusiasts.
Well, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
Hey, there are legitimate car clubs and there's more and more separating themselves from these criminals, because those engaged in the street takeovers are criminals. They're gang members. They're stealing vehicles along those lines, and they care the sanctity of life. They care not. Don't confuse those with legitimate, car clubs that are out there that really are encouraged by from the social standpoint, but also just in terms of being able to socialize and work on their cars, and they're two separate things. And I think and what they're doing right now, what we're encouraged by, is doing a better job of separating themselves from that activity.
Mayor.
Yeah,
Hold
I'm
a
going
second.
to add to that. I think the other important thing to realize for cities across Texas and working with DPS, there's two things, and it's important for me to mention this. Mayor Pro Tem Bivens, who's here, she has community members right behind her, and they are community members who are passionate about this cause, and they created their own task force. And working directly with our police department to say, we know who these perpetrators are. They are stealing vehicles. They are terrorizing our neighborhoods. That's number one. And number two is, to your point about car clubs, in Fort Worth, I can name 2 or 3 that want the separation. In fact, they're working tirelessly to make sure what they're about is about being car enthusiasts and not being criminals. And I want to make sure that's a point we're making here in Fort Worth. We're incredibly proud of our Lowrider Society and others that are right here in Fort Worth that are part of our community. And lastly, some of the most innovative things we've done here in the city of Fort Worth are actually in cooperation with our TPW department and putting different TPW mechanisms in the middle of the street to kind of create this. Our car clubs don't need that, right? They're going to slow speed cruise throughout different neighborhoods. It's a very different situation you're seeing here in Fort Worth. Yeah.
Thank you.
You mentioned going after people who upload, record, and upload this activity, perhaps to social media, which fuels a lot of it. What kind of resources do you have in place? How do you plan to go about that?
Why don't you take that
Yes,
first?
sir.
and I'll let you answer.
Well, actually, what it does is it's not too hard to identify facilitators. And they've been operating, and they've been encouraged by social media platforms that are trying to encourage more hits on their platform along those lines. So, between our analysts and special agents and working with, our sheriff's deputies and police officers, like at Fort Worth Police Department, he talked about having a real-time crime center, the chief did, and also a fusion center. So there's various means of identifying these individuals and just doing ongoing criminal conspiracy. So it's not that difficult to do, and we're going to do it. And, of course, come September 1st, now it's a crime.
And I'm going to add something to that, 2 things. One, quickly, Chief's going to answer what we're doing right now. But number 2, I'd like to work with some of the members that are standing behind us, because I think our social media companies honestly have a huge burden that they need to be taken care of in the state of Texas, because they are perpetrating this crime over and over again, because these kids would not be doing this if they weren't getting hits on Instagram or Twitter or TikTok. And it is absolutely that criminal activity that's impacting our neighborhoods. Chief?
You're correct, Mayor. This kind of activity would not be so rampant if it wasn't for the encouragement, for the social media exposure, for the clicks that some of these criminals get from social media. So it's critical for us to make sure we're approaching it from that angle as well. We have a very proficient real-time crime center, fusion center, intelligent unit, homeland security unit, but they don't work in a bubble. They don't work in a silo. They work with similar groups throughout the nation, and several very close right here in the state of Texas, such as the DPS. Work very closely with the Dallas Police Department and Chief Eddie Garcia's team. It's that cooperation and that collaboration that allows us to be able to locate and identify all those who are encouraging and promoting these kind of events.
All right, Jack, one more question?
Thank you. Governor, I wanted to ask you about the Biden administration's lawsuit regarding the border. And when you look at the lawsuit, it says that navigable waters, Rio Grande, and the federal government says the buoy barrier is a structure, and therefore it's illegal. So I'm wondering, why do you think the courts are going to side with you in the state of Texas? And I also wanted to get an update from the Colonel, if I could, about the investigation by TPS Inspector General on the trooper's allegations of mistreatment of migrants. My understanding is 5 troopers have come forward.
So on the lawsuit by the Biden administration, I'll be honest with you. I thought President Biden would send me a thank you note for what Texas is doing to secure the border, and maybe a big check for all the money the state of Texas is investing to do the federal government's job. Second thing, as it concerns our ability to succeed in that lawsuit, I think is very clear. First of all, the statute on which the lawsuit is based does not seem to apply to the buoys that are at issue. But second, even if it does, I believe that the constitutional right of the state of Texas to secure our border and to defend our sovereignty supersedes any statute. The last thing I'll make clear, and that is I cannot predict what may happen in a trial court. What I can tell you for certainty is that Texas is going to take this case all the way to the United States Supreme Court to defend the rights guaranteed to us in the United States Constitution. On the other question, I will defer to Colonel McCraw.
Yes, as you noted, there's an ongoing Inspector General investigation. We're going to allow him to complete the investigation. He's looking at all allegations that have been made, and he'll do. I'm quite confident that Inspector General Philip Ayala will do a great job, a comprehensive investigation like he always does. And if there's anybody that any misconduct at all, okay, they'll be held accountable. No, I haven't confirmed that at all. Just that there's at least, I'll go ahead and say there's at least 5, okay, different officers that have concerns about the policy in terms of Operation Hold the Line, period. As the specific allegations I won't get into, but I can assure you that the Inspector General will. And there'll be, the public will receive the report as well.